Welcome back to Shouting Into the Void. How are you, Danny?
I'm very well, Lewis. How are you?
I'm not so bad, man. I'm back in the hotel. It's Shouting Into the Void on the road yet again.
On the road. Wow. If you get like a roadie with you.
I do, yeah. He's doing drugs in the corner.
Oh, lovely.
As roadies
Lovely.
do so often.
Yeah, for some reason. Yep. In fact, yeah, we're just talking about the situations that many artists find themselves in. roadie drug overdoses in the corner. You know, it's a...
I didn't say he was overdosing. He's just mellow, man.
Yeah, well, he's on his way, isn't he? You know, it's a gateway. It's the gateway.
That's very true, I suppose. Drugs are bad. Don't do drugs.
Shouting Into the Void approves this message.
Shouting Into the Void... I would like to be explicitly clear on this one. Shouting Into the Void approves the message, don't do drugs.
Yep.
That's the message of the podcast.
That's it.
I mean, we talk inanely about fantastic pieces of media, and we are...
We just butcher
idiots.
them. We butcher the media. Like, there are so many. There's so many more qualified people to talk about these things, and we just absolutely ruin it.
Oh, definitely, man. And yet, I'm ready to ruin yet another thing this week, next week, every week.
Yep. So this week it's Watchmen.
Yes, the book/film.
Yes.
And potential also HBO miniseries in the near future.
Yeah, we'll need to do a review of that when it comes out. I'm very excited about doing this one. Watchmen is one of, if not my favourite graphic novel.
It's real good.
It really is. It was written by Alan Moore, illustrated by Dave Gibbons, and the film was directed by who, Lewis? Little quiz for you.
Zack Snyder.
Oh, well done.
Thank
and
you.
Do you know who the film was written by?
Zack Snyder?
No, Lewis, for God's sake. The people who listen to this depend on our professional
If they depend on my
research.
professionalism, they are done for. I am not a consummate professional in any way. I'm here drinking a hot chocolate while we are getting ready to talk about Watchmen. Would you like to hear what one of my fantastic notes is for Watchmen?
Go on then.
It's a quote from Rorschach. You ready for this?
Yeah, go on.
Herm. It's a brilliant quote.
Herm. Do you know, see, I've got, I'm sure you know this, Lewis, I've got the deluxe edition of Watchmen, the comic
yes,
book.
I know this because you mentioned it to me 3 minutes ago.
Yes, but, you know, I was wanting to create a sort of timeless thing there, but you've just smashed the illusion for these lovely people.
Well, if we never create a fourth wall, then we never have to break it.
That's good. I like that. I'm going to
Thank you.
steal that. I'm going to
be
steal
my
that
guest.
and pass that off as my own. But at
Good
the back, there's a sketch, right, of a Rorschach by a young Neil Gaiman, right?
Yeah,
but it's Watchmen. It's called Watch Dogs. So
I
it's
think
like
I might have this in my copy. I have it to hand here. Maybe look.
Blot the dog, and it's Rorschach as a dog, and it says Herm Woof.
Herm Woof. Well, ain't that the truth? Oh no, I do not have it in my copy, but I have seen it. I've seen it online and stuff.
Yep.
Dead human in the gutter. This city's afraid of me, and I've smelt its lampposts.
Very good.
That
I
was
see
my
what you did there.
impression.
You made a joke about a dog.
I didn't. No, he wrote that. I didn't make that joke.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Neil Gaiman made a joke about a dog then.
Neil
Good
Gaiman's
stuff,
good.
eh?
I like Neil Gaiman.
Speaking of Neil Gaiman, have you seen Good Omens?
No, but I've heard it's very good.
Oh, mate, do it. It's great. I watched it with my partner, and I absolutely loved it. And she thought it was great up until the finale, where she said, well, that was a lot of build-up for nothing.
Well, I mean, really?
Yeah.
Is there not? Is there? I would have thought that using the Bible as source material, there'd be a pretty big climax at the end of all that.
Well, like...
Was there not a rapture or something?
Well, there's an almost rapture. There's a not quite
Spoilers,
rapture.
by the way.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
massive spoilers for Game of Thrones, for Good Omens, and also for Watchmen if you haven't read it yet.
I am not reviewing that mistake of a show. Well,
But,
I mean, if people ask, I probably will.
But like I haven't said spoilers for like any of the stuff we've done so far, because I think the most recent thing we've done was 2014. Watchmen came out in the 80s. Like I'm not I'm not about to say spoilers for something that came out in the 80s. If we were, like,
Yep.
reviewing the new Star Wars film, yeah, sure. But, like, you know. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
spoilers for
fair
Good
enough.
Omens, because that came out, like, a couple months ago.
Spoilers for Watchmen.
Spoilers for Watchmen. It came out in, I don't know, 1987 or whatever it was, but, you know, spoilers
film-
anyway.
The film came out in 2009, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. I was 9 then.
If you haven't seen... Well, yeah, so was I. If you haven't seen it, 2009, so that was 10 years ago.
Yep.
If you haven't seen it in the last 10 years since it's been out, then
That's your fault.
maybe you deserve to have it spoiled for you.
Yep.
But anyway...
Anyway.
Spoilers for... What was it I was talking about? Good Omens? Yeah,
Good Omens.
They build up to this big old, like, battle type thing. And,
Right.
like, literally the devil comes out of the ground, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And he, like,
Really?
claws
Oh,
his
for
way up
God's
from hell
sake.
and comes out of the ground.
That's really predictable.
And then instead of there being some kind of big fight type thing going on, there's this boy, and he just sort of goes, "Oh, you're not my real dad." And then the devil's like, "Oh no," and then goes back to hell.
What?
The boy is the Antichrist, as
Right, so-
in fathered by Satan.
Okay, and like...
And then Satan comes up out the ground, and is like, "Oh, you've got to wreak havoc on the world, and we're gonna fight the angels together, son." And then the boy goes, "But you're not my real dad," and then Satan's like, "Oh, arrow to the heart,"
What?
and then he goes back to hell.
That is... Do you know what that is? That is the original version of an adaptation of a book being really bad. That does not happen in the Bible, I can assure you. I've read the Bible.
I think
It's
it does
much...
happen in Good Omens, the book, though. So you know, it's fairly faithful on that front.
Yeah, but good omens, you know, that if the Bible hadn't been around, good omens would never have happened.
Well,
It would have just...
well, yeah, but that's like saying if computers had never have been around, Star Trek would never have been written. Like, if space didn't
it's
exist,
like-
Star Wars would have never happened. Do you know what I mean?
It's like the Shining version. Stephen King didn't like the Shining. Daniel, Job, Paul the Apostle didn't like Good Omens. They said it was rubbish.
On a similar sort of thing, did you hear about that Christian group in America that tried to get Good Omens banned?
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, they wrote to Netflix, but of course it's an Amazon Prime series.
I mean, I tried to, what do you call it?
Kick off?
Yeah, I tried. I'm sure, but I've read books and been really angry with the adaptation.
As we all have, I'm sure.
Yep. So I can see the frustration,
Yeah.
but you know, come on, guys, it's a TV show. Get
Imagine
real.
if that was the tagline of a show you worked on. Come on, guys, it's a TV show.
Yeah,
real.
I'm such a hypocrite. I've been they did an adaptation of The Killing Joke, and it was
Yeah,
an
the-
animated version, and I watched it, and I was it was fucking shite. Excuse my Spanish. It was awful.
The second half was alright, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that's because it was a frame for frame retelling of the comic. The first half was this weird sort of chase of a guy who was a bit like the Joker, and then Batman and Batgirl have fucking sex at the end of it, and then it's like, oh, I don't want you to get hurt, but I'll a weird sort of mentory sex thing. Oh, it was weird. It was really weird. But then the second half came in, and that was a bit better.
Sounds like you're kind of mad about that.
Yeah, no liberties were taken by the people who wrote it. It wasn't as if, oh, we're going to do something really different, you know. No, we'll just add on a shitty story at the beginning and then tell the Killing Joke again. They could have just. Oh, I'm not gonna. It's too early to be getting into this. I'm sorry. I know that I don't want viewers to see the ugly side of me. This is where I come to relax.
This is how you come to relax. The hell are you like at home?
Mom! I don't want rice. No.
Right, so 11 minutes in. It's going well
Yeah.
so far.
Yep. Who's in this film anyway? Patrick Wilson,
Oh, good grief! Now you're asking.
Jackie Earl Haley.
Oh, he was very good.
He was very good. Malin Ackerman, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Morgan,
Yeah, that's the only name I know out of the top billed cast.
Billy Crudup, and Matthew Good.
Yeah,
Matthew Good was good.
Way!
Okay, so should we start reviewing now?
Yeah, go on then. Let's have a bit of a cheeky review, shall we?
What did you think of the comic book / film Watchmen, Lewis?
I think the comic book / film Watchmen was utterly superb. I think the graphic novel was, of course, superior to the film. I don't think that was the fault of Zack Snyder. I don't think that was necessarily the fault of any of the creative team behind the film. But I think that the ending that they wrote for the film was, of course, different to the ending of the book.
Yeah.
In that the ending in the book is like a supposed alien invasion is staged by Ozymandias, and that unites the world against what they perceive to be a alien threat, but in reality it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And in the film, Ozymandias does essentially exactly the same thing, but
he
the
frames
alien
Manhattan, though.
Yeah, he frames Dr. Manhattan instead of framing an alien species that doesn't exist.
Yep. Which I think doesn't really make sense.
No.
Because the Russians already see Manhattan as an enemy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why, even though they know that Manhattan was a US military asset, why would they then join the US despite the fact that Manhattan was on their side the entire time and has now suddenly turned on them?
The thing that doesn't make sense to me is that at no point in the film before the end is there implied to be any kind of animosity between Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias. It's literally, if he'd have done it to spite him or something, I could have kind of understood. It would have kind of made sense for the character for that to be the character's motivation for staging this Dr. Manhattan genocide or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen, of course, which is quite strange.
I mean, how did he do it? It was a subplot about like an energy deficiency or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, an energy crisis, and so
I
Dr. Manhattan made these reactors in conjunction with Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
I
read that Snyder did that to make it a bit more topical to the times,
which I suppose does kind of make sense. Like,
yeah,
the whole, well, we're going to run out of oil one day.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, getting a giant alien to sort of explode in the middle of New York is there's no surefire. It was a huge risk on Adrian's part, because I know that they'll unite if I put an alien threat in the middle of the city, but there's no guarantee of that.
You're completely right. There's no guarantee of that at all. But then I suppose, thinking about it, what else could they possibly have done?
Yeah.
Saying for the sake of argument that they can't figure out that it's Ozymandias that did the whole teleporting an alien into the middle of New York City. What else would they have done in that situation?
Yeah. I suppose I'm being nitpicky there. I'm just curious how more thought all that up. And
yeah,
I know that he was influenced by Bob Dylan. There was a song, I wrote it down here actually, a song called Desolation Row.
Okay.
That Dylan published, it's not a book. Released in 1996. And one of the lines was, at midnight, all the agents and the superhuman crew come out and round up everyone who knows more than you do, or more than they do. And it sounds as if, like, at midnight, I suppose, is reference to the Doomsday Clock and the event that Adrian puts forward.
Yes, yeah.
And the agents and the superhuman crew are obviously the Watchmen.
Yes, completely.
And come out and round up everyone who knows more than they do is, I suppose, them doing what they believe is in huge opposites to each other.
I suppose it could even be seen, that thing about rounding up people who knows more than they do. It could even be seen as that scene in the book where Night Owl and the comedian are like on patrol over a rioting New York City, and the comedian jumps off of the Night Owl's ship and starts like beating people.
Mm-hmm.
That literally is people that are sort of disillusioned with his power and his authority. He's literally rounding them up and sending them to prison. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Obviously, we talked about the difference between the ending, but there was a few more differences in the film.
Okay.
They omitted a lot of the Minutemen stuff.
God, yeah, now you mention it. I had completely forgotten about the Minutemen stuff.
Yeah.
Because that adds like a whole different dimension to the comedian's character when you know he's been doing it for so long.
Exactly. Hollis Mason had about 3 scenes in the film.
Yeah.
Despite the fact being the original fucking Night Owl.
3 very sad scenes, though.
Yeah. Yeah, they were sad, so that's alright.
What the hell was that noise?
Sorry. I shape-shifted there for a minute. And they changed the characters a wee bit. Mm-hmm. The relationship between Rorschach and Dan is more friendly in the film.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Dan is really afraid of Rorschach in the book. It repulses him, and Rorschach in the film doesn't eat as many. Just should be eating sugar cubes
left and right
every 2 fucking minutes.
Oh yeah, we should have destroyed Jackie Earle Haley's teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
For that film, we should have just destroyed his teeth.
And he didn't eat raw eggs either.
Not once.
Not
I'm
once.
offended by the fact that no raw eggs were eaten by Jackie Earle Haley in that film. Should have gone full method.
Exactly. Method, maybe.
Oh yeah. It's that thing from Beauty and the Beast, where Gaston says he eats 5 dozen eggs every morning. Maybe Jackie Earle Haley should have done that in preparation for the role.
You know, I think Rorschach doesn't. You know, I don't think he's on some sort of protein trip when he eats his raw eggs and his cold beans. I think
a lot of protein in beans, a lot of protein in eggs.
Well, maybe. But so
not
why
much protein in sugar cubes, though.
Why does he eat sugar cubes?
Sugar to get him going in the morning, to really destroy his teeth as fast as possible.
To get him up and about. What did you think of Silk Spectre in the film?
In the film, I'm going to be straight up with you, Danny. I haven't watched the film in preparation for this. I read the book, but I haven't watched the film, so I'm going to go into my mind palace and retrieve the film.
Okay. You haven't watched the film?
No, I have watched the film, but just not in the recent past.
Oh my god.
Right, let me think about this for a brief second.
Let's do a comparison from book to film of the story Watchmen. What we did this last episode. You didn't watch the last 10 minutes of The Social Network. It's like Simon is just sitting writing down notes, and the only one in capital letters: watch the film that you're going to review.
That's very true, yeah. I did a lot of prep from the book, though. I have many, many pages of notes from the book.
Yeah, the book's much better anyway.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So go on, what did you think of Silk Spectre from the film, then?
I think they just completely wasted her. She's so much more determined in the book.
Yes.
And a much more intriguing character. Whereas in the film, Zack Snyder does her up in a big fucking leather suit. She looks like just another Hollywood trope of a female superhero. And she's just whiny throughout the entire film. She just whines.
I think she does have a lot of determination in the book. You're completely right with that. Like I think the key theme in the book is power and the control thereof.
Yep.
In that, like, Dr. Manhattan has, like, ultimate power and ultimate control of it. Adrian Veidt sort of has always struggled for power. Right up until the end, where he's struggling to the point that he doesn't even know if it's going to work. His interdiction field remover, or whatever it was, and him trying to catch a bullet.
I know this.
Intrinsic field, that's it.
Yes, intrinsic field thingy.
But like both of those two things, he says. He says after he's done them, well, I didn't even know if that was going to work. He's struggling for power in that situation. Rorschach rejects the concept of having power, just in favour of just being entirely autonomous.
Yep.
Night Owl is utterly powerless.
Yep.
He's retired from being a superhero, and he's living off his inheritance from his dad's business. And Silk Spectre has power and ability, but it was always used by other people.
Yep.
Like
Definitely.
at the start of her arc, it's her mother controlling her power that way, and then sort of at the end of her arc, which is where the book sort of starts, or at least where she turns up in the book, her power is being used by the US military to sort of control Dr. Manhattan, essentially.
Yep. Exactly.
I think that's probably that's the reason she has so much determination in the book, and why she is actually the one that shoots Adrian Veidt in the book, is because she spent her whole life being forced into decision-making processes instead of just making her own decisions, making her own choices in that way.
Yep. And then there's Edward Blake, the comedian who just laughs at all of them. Who is. I mean, that I completely understand why Moore did so well with The Killing Joke when he wrote a character like the comedian. I mean, he's so similar to the Joker in terms of ideology. And his relationship with the original Silk Spectre,
yes,
is very interesting, I think.
I suppose so. Yeah, I think it's left deliberately very, very vague in that.
Yeah.
As in, especially what he thinks of her. Like let me just think about this for a second. He tries to rape her, and then after a period of time, she falls in love with him, and together they conceive of Silk Spectre 2, whose name I've completely forgotten. Laurie Jupasic, that's it.
Yep, Laurie Jupasic.
And it's an interesting relationship, but it's sort of glossed over.
And it's in the film it is definitely. And rather than slowly working out who her dad is, Dr. Manhattan just puts his hands up to her head and goes bzzz, and then suddenly she realizes.
Yeah, that was real weird. That was a really weird part of the film. In the book, he never displays any kind of psychic ability.
Yep, and why would he care?
Isn't the whole point of that sequence on Mars that he's learning to care again?
Yeah, I know, but why but it's also that he has trouble doing it as well. And
I suppose.
At the point in the story, he's become completely detached from humanity. And it's a big character jump from not caring to, just, here's the truth about your dad that I knew for quite a while. And I think it's more service to her character that she works it out, without some alien or god just zapping into her head.
Yeah.
Because
maybe that's one of the sort of the fatal flaws of the film, because I think that, as well as obviously the big differences in the ending and stuff, the chemistry between the characters didn't work. Like you briefly touched on a few minutes ago, how the chemistry between Dan Dreiberg and Rorschach didn't work.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because the characters were fundamentally changed.
Yeah.
Dan Dreiberg was largely the same. Rorschach was sort of less brutal, less focused on justice. What's that line he has? No compromise, not even in the face of Armageddon. He's less focused on this black and white worldview.
Yeah.
And as you say, Laurie Jupasic is entirely... She's made into like almost a background character, almost a supporting character, where in the book she's integral to the plot.
Yeah, exactly. And like in the film where they all decide to keep the secret, there is far more hesitation from Rorschach than he does in the book. Like in the book, he just says, "Joking, of course," and just leaves. He doesn't stand and stop and then look behind and then have this sort of, I have to do this, it's in my principles. He's like, no, there is no compromise at all, and I'm not even going to display any conflict with it. But in the film, it's like,
Never compromise.
and he has this dramatic pose, and he looks back to Dan, and he's like,
That's always been the difference between us, Daniel.
and it's like, no, just leave. There isn't even any pretense in the book that he's thinking about it. It's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Like, Rorschach's power is that he's so aggressively autonomous.
Yeah.
And I think that was what made him and Dan Dryberg go so well together in ye olden days, as it were, was they were both very autonomous, and yet they worked together as a team. That's briefly touched upon when Dan Dryberg says, me and Rorschach have made a lot of progress in dealing with the gang problem.
Yeah.
Because they're both autonomous and they work together.
Mm-hmm.
And in the film, it's implied that Rorschach is less autonomous than that, but that's like his whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And Dan sees Rorschach's death in the film.
Yeah, which again is weird. Because of all the things, that is what would make Dan less likely to want to be complicit to this plan.
Yep. And he then has a sort of run at Adrian and says, you haven't saved humanity, you've warped it, you've deformed it. Which you were talking about how Dan doesn't have power, and he is the least powerful character.
Yeah.
In the story, and I think to see his best friend die, and then run at Adrian, and then fight, and then say, "Oh, you've warped it," and it's like, well, no, he wouldn't do that because he has the least amount of power. If you know what I mean.
At the end of the book, he does sort of regain his power by regaining control of his life. And this is why I think control is like a secondary main theme. He regains control of his life after it's revealed to him that he's been out of control, like it's already happened. I did it 35 minutes ago, or whatever it was. He's been out of control the whole time, and after that, it's like he's back in sync with himself.
Yep.
And he sleeps with Laurie at the pool and all this, and... I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Oh, excuse me, I'm very sorry.
It's alright.
And he sleeps with Laurie at the pool, and he's regained control of himself and his abilities, and I think perhaps that's what the film should have had. The film should have had him regaining control of himself like that, instead of regaining control by trying to attack Adrian, which is very out of character.
Yeah. See, when they say when they're at the pool, what is that, Dan? What's that you smell of?
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia. I think that's a really fantastic line.
It is a fantastic line. You're right.
And it just again harkens to this. The nostalgia is what they'll be looking for now after this horrible event, and they'll just continue to look back and miss the days before the whole, I'm gonna blow up an alien in New York,
like how Silk Spectre the First does.
Yes, exactly.
And
I think I think that's a linchpin for a lot of people of that generation, because a lot of, this is anecdotal, but a lot of people that I know that grew up in that era are constantly about nostalgia, and are constantly talking about the good old days.
But I think that's a continual theme in history.
Yeah.
In that, like, I suppose as you get older, each year that you go through is a smaller and smaller fraction of your life. Like, say you're 2 years old, the second year you live is half of your entire life, so it feels like a millennia. But then you get to 80, and it's an 80th of your life, which is nothing. It must feel like the world is changing so much more quickly. Like it's on a... what's the word? Like it's changing at an exponential rate, almost.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why nostalgia is more of a big thing in perhaps the older generations, is because they're so aware of the world is changing really fast. It's so different from what I was used to.
Yeah. But, I'm sure that you and I would argue that back in those days, life was significantly worse.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think
for
quality
a
of
lot
life.
For a lot of different people.
I think quality of life has vastly increased nowadays, from things like simple healthcare and public health, things like that, to more complex
inequality.
things like after the civil rights movement and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
inequality and things like that. And I think, and we'll probably say 50 years from now, I'm sure that you and I will be sitting on the millionth entry of this podcast going, I miss the good old days. And
Things
we'll probably
were better when we just talked about Watchmen.
Yep. I'm sure that we'll end up being nostalgic ourselves, because I think everyone's nostalgic. I'm nostalgic about, like, you know, the TV shows that used to be on that aren't anymore.
You know what I'm nostalgic about?
Go on then.
10p Freddos.
Oh gee, we're not starting that. Come on, listen. We need to be like Peter Kay. We need fresh material every single time. I sent you that list of hilarious jokes, did I not?
Yeah, you did. A very long list, comprehensive list.
Yep.
Some would say it was almost copied and pasted from somewhere. Although I'm sure you did come up with them yourself.
What are you implying, Lewis?
I'm just saying that you're a truly original artist, but you know it's understandable if you need to get a little help somewhere to try and generate these new jokes.
A joke Viagra pill? Is that what you're saying?
That's
saying
precisely what I'm saying. Yeah.
Do you know what I didn't like as well about the film?
Go on.
I didn't like the way that they changed Ozymandias.
How did they change him?
Well, in the film, he shows really quite disturbing sociopathic tendencies.
Yeah.
In the film, and in the book, he's a hero, and he's a guy who really wants to help humanity, and he just sort of martyrs it because he sees that as the only way to save the world. But in the film, he's much more ominous and much more he's meant to be. It feels as if he's a villain in the film, whereas in the book he's like, no, I'm doing this for humanity.
In the book he's sort of a grey character, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like portrayed as sort of like fatherly, if you know what I mean, and
yeah,
just very calm and very gracious, which is just different to how he was in the film. What did you think of the Tales of the Black Freighter?
Would you like to hear my note on Black Freighter?
Go on.
Black Freighter. What the fuck? I have read it a couple of times, and I still don't understand what it means. I've read online that it's like a metaphor for Ozymandias' journey throughout the book, but
yeah, I thought that's what it was as well.
I don't get it. I've read it and I don't get it.
I thought it was an interesting thing that was again omitted from the film.
Apparently it was filmed though. It was edited out.
Really?
I think so, yeah, or at least it was scripted at the very least.
Yeah. I thought that it was a way to show the sincerity of how much Ozymandias regretted what he did, and he has to live with the millions of people that he killed as a result. And I thought that's what it was trying to do, and I thought that it was a way to sort of show, yeah, he has to live with this, and it's very solemn. But in the film, because it's omitted, there really isn't any indication that he feels remorse or guilt over what he did.
Yeah,
which
he
is
just
again
doesn't care.
which is again is a fun. I mean, he has a line where he says, "Oh, I've made myself feel every death," but it's like, no, I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah,
it just doesn't come across that way.
It's like it's for me. It's the difference between not only how the film character and the book character behave, but how they look. In that, the book character, because obviously it's a graphic novel, his face is like his body is drawn slightly more, I don't know, less harsh.
Yep.
Like the actor who played Ozymandias, clearly for the role, got very, very toned and very, very like lost a lot of weight and stuff, but he had very sharp cheekbones and a very sharp jaw, which made him just look more harsh and more dangerous almost. And then he played it in this very sociopathic type way. And
his costume as well was clearly a sort of a parody of like Batman Forever and exactly. Which I thought was interesting, but it doesn't really match the character in the book at all.
You're right. Ozymandias' costume in the book is sort of like almost robes, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like very loose-fitting bits of cloth that sort of go around bits of gold armour at the neck and sort of waist.
Yep.
Mm.
So see when he chose his name, Ozymandias.
Yeah.
Do you think he knew from the beginning that he was going to have to do something that would cost him everything? Because Ozymandias is obviously from the Shelley poem.
Yeah.
You know, my name is Ozymandias.
King of kings, look upon my work, ye mighty, and despair.
Yep, and in that poem, it's about a traveller who sees this giant statue of this ruined king of olden days.
Mm.
And maybe when he chose that name, he knew that everything that I have will be destroyed, but it will be in the service of something greater than myself.
Well, maybe he was looking at it because it says both in the book and the film that he takes pride in being similar to and having a similar philosophy to Alexander the Great.
Yes.
And I'm not sure whether it's a quote or a history textbook or what it is, but that thing about how Alexander the Great conquered essentially all of Asia and then got to the sea and sort of knelt on the beach and cried because there was nothing more that he could do, nothing more that he could conquer.
Yep.
And so perhaps he was viewing it that way of like, well, I can be the best in the world at everything, but I've got to stop somewhere.
Yep.
Because again, I guess that's kind of the point of the poem as well, of Ozymandias must have died at some point. This ancient king, he must have died at some point, and that is why the city fell.
Or it might be a cruel black joke that despite his huge magnificent efforts to stop the world from being destroyed, it will eventually be destroyed by something else, or the old conflict will return when they realise that there isn't another alien coming, because they will realise that eventually, unless Ozymandias has like a number of these and he'll just continue bombing parts of the world.
That's a good point that I'd never considered, because the sort of the point of the resolution is that like Ozymandias has united them against these aliens. So you'd think that the first thing you'd do in a sort of united world government is think, well, those aliens just attacked us, let's have a look and see if there's more. And then as soon as they turn their telescopes to the skies, they'll realise, actually, there aren't any more. That was the last and only one. So
I mean, I think for a while, at least, they'd be on watch about it, and they wouldn't. They would continue this incredibly entrenched, peace fortress-like planet.
Sure.
But eventually, it would be forgotten. And I think that's the point of the name Ozymandias. It's like, no matter how big your kingdom or your fruits of labour are, eventually they will turn to dust. No matter how badly or greatly you've affected the world, it will move on and it will forget you eventually. Because time doesn't stop for anyone.
That's very true, and that fits in with the last thing that Dr. Manhattan said of nothing ever ends, Adrian.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
See, this is one of the reasons I love this book so much, is I read it for the first time in maybe 2014 or something, when I was 14 years old.
Yep.
And I thought I got it then, and I sort of embraced it, and I watched the film, and I understood so much of it then. And literally just now, I'm putting together these bits about Ozymandias, nothing ever... Just see what I mean? It's
yeah, exactly.
It's
nothing ever ends when you read Watchmen.
Exactly, it's the wheel within the wheel.
Yep, there's more to just consider. And do you know what else I thought was interesting?
Go on.
The fact that the truth about Adrian's exploits is discovered by a guy who looks as if he just doesn't care about anything, and he's eating a burger, he's very nonchalant, and it's like, I think it just shows how fickle and how futile the universe really is. And it's just the horrible truths really don't mean that much in the grand scheme of things. When the passage of time just continues and continues, all the horrible things that happen in the world will eventually just be forgotten, and the universe doesn't care about horrible events, and it's just this one tiny planet in this huge universe where we so often see ourselves as the centre of everything, and our tiny petty squabbles just mean nothing.
What was that quote from Doctor Strange? I'm just a tiny speck in an indifferent universe. Something like that. But I suppose what it really comes down to is that way of thinking, which is clearly what the comedian embraces, and sort of what Dr. Manhattan embraces about, I mean, yeah, things are happening, but I guess they don't really matter. Because there's going to be one point at which none of these events are remembered.
Yeah.
Or there's the other way of thinking, which I think, like Dan Dreiberg, I think, thinks this way of, well, as long as we tend towards the positive and we tend towards doing things for the betterment of humanity, we're probably doing okay. Like, I noticed that at the burial of the comedian, Dan Dreiberg has cleaned the blood off the mask, off the badge.
Yeah.
Which I think, to me, is indicative of this idea of, like, well, we should tend towards the positive. We should tend towards increasing progress. So he sort of wants to erase and wipe away the crimes and the horrors of Eddie Blake in favour of the good things he's done.
I suppose that's a good point, because even though this, all the stuff that we've done will be forgotten eventually, I suppose you could argue, well, while we're waiting, just try and make it as good for everyone as possible.
I suppose the middle ground would be this interesting idea of, like, well, yeah, nothing really matters. We live in a deterministic, pointless universe in which all our information, these events will be forgotten.
Yep.
But the ever ongoing march of progress is still important within that universe.
Yep.
It's almost a hypocritical belief, which is maybe where Rorschach's grey area sits.
Exactly.
Is thinking, none of the bad things I do matter, but good as a concept should still matter.
Yeah.
For example, Rorschach can investigate however many homicides. He can try and do good and try to put away criminals and try to bring comfort to the families of murdered civilians. But he still goes into bars and breaks people's fingers to get information.
Yep, exactly. It's a paradox.
It is a paradox, and I think that's the nature of the book, is that it's all grey. There's no black and white.
Exactly. And the newspaper, it shows. I think the newspaper institution at the end of the book, when they're talking about trying to find stories, it's just so. It just displays, no matter how peaceful, no matter how prosperous humanity is, there is always an insatiable conflict for an insatiable desire for conflict, because the editor's like, oh, it's all peace loving and there's nothing to report. So the guy is actually wishing for something bad to happen so he can talk about it. So
and he's there kicking off and saying, like, I'll happily eat the burgers from that place, but I don't want to say the word borscht in this office. I don't want to talk about Russians in this office. He's quite openly prejudiced against the Russians.
Yeah.
Even though it's this, I mean, you can't see the air quotes, but this unified world. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And it just shows that, again, it won't last. It can't last, because human beings, in their ever flawed nature, will never let it last. There is always going to be someone who is unhappy with the current state of affairs and will try and shift it towards their way of thinking. And
I suppose you're right.
See if Rorschach's journal is published, would that really make a difference? Do you think?
That's another one of my notices. My notes. Does it really matter? Would anybody believe him?
Yeah,
because I'm not being funny, but the opening line of that journal is what, something about I saw a dead dog in an alleyway. It got run over by a car.
Exactly.
Like, surely they're going to read that as an opening to an article and think, fucking hell.
Yeah.
This is just horrible. Why would I read the rest of this?
Well, that might be the point. because
perhaps.
the guy's annoyed that there's no stories to report on, so he might just publish. He might just
The
say,
ramblings of a lunatic.
"Yep, ex-vigilante publishes journal before death" or something like that, and it's a, it's a reactionary right-wing paper that the guy with the Watchmen T-shirt works at. So
Okay.
some people would be willing to listen to it.
Yeah, some people would be willing to listen to it, but that'd almost be like making up the news, which of course no one ever does.
No, of course it is. It's all facts. It's all facts in this world.
It's all facts.
I mean, yeah, and that speaks to our own culture like really well, because like even if something is reported that looks so clear cut, like, I don't want to make it like too political, but I can't remember what it was, but there was something that was trending on Twitter, and both sides of the political aisle saw it as a victory against the other, and it was like Brexiteers are cheering and are really happy, meanwhile Remainers are cheering and are really. It's like, well, it means you can just change anything and just look at it any way that you want.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's becoming just more common nowadays, where any despite the facts, you can look at anything any way you want now. And the lines are just so blurred that it's almost as if facts are just irrelevant in today's culture.
Well, that's a nice cheery way to look at the news.
Exactly. Exactly.
Should we talk about a bit metacognitively about the book and the film?
Yeah, go on then.
It's so gorgeous. The book is so gorgeous.
I'm looking at the Doomsday Clock on chapter I can't remember, Roman 12, chapter 12. I just saw it because the big hand and the little hand were pointing to the 12. Up to that point I was like, what number's that? I'm just looking at the clock, and there's like the blood pouring down it is so well drawn.
Oh,
and
God,
it's
yeah.
so horrific and so gorgeous at the same time.
I absolutely love the colour palette, to be completely honest with you. It's one of the things I noticed after I read The Dark Knight. Is it The Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller one?
Yep.
How it's
It's weirdly illustrated, that book.
oh, I love it.
It's
But,
very sort of jagged and very untidy.
But I think
Frustrating almost, which is, it's very indicative of the time that it's meant to be set in.
oh yeah. But the thing I noticed about that book, well, I didn't notice, somebody pointed it out to me, was that like the first few pages it's really, really hot, and everybody's really frustrated by the heat in the city, and frustrated by this crime wave and all this sort of stuff, and all the panels are very, very small, and all the colours of like reds and yellows and oranges for this heat, and then all of a sudden there's a snap thunderstorm and it all goes dark blue, very, very Batman, sort of dark blue, blacks, greys, those sort of colours, and there's that gorgeous panel of Batman like leaping across the city while lightning strikes.
Yeah.
There's this enormous colour disparity, and that's what you can see in this book, is between these blues and purples and the oranges and yellows. Like that bit where Moloch, I'm not really sure.
Moloch,
But,
I think.
Moloch, but where he's sort of remembering the visit he had from the comedian, and the comedian is pacing around the room sobbing, and there's literally the panels switch between blue, orange, blue, orange, blue, orange, and the blue ones all have a common theme of him being remorseful and angry at his past self, and the yellows and oranges all have a common theme of him being angry at other people and his sort of his future self, or the future in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's just touching on like the way that characters feel. Like see the stuff on Mars. It's so like, just because where the comedian is just switching between how he feels, and it's just completely bipolar. And on Mars, it's not only indicative of how Manhattan feels at that moment, it's just desolate and empty and just so barren, but it's a sad telling of that is what he will see eventually. It's like because he's immortal and he will just continue forever, and that's what he will end up seeing everywhere.
The Martian landscape.
Yep.
Mm.
Well, not the Martian land, but the desolate, barren.
The desert nature of everything. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I did notice as well something which is very I keep saying, oh yeah, I noticed this thing, as if I'm some kind of clever literary genius. I'm not. I'm a moron. I just happened to see these things online, or somebody mentioned them to me in real life, or whatever it was. But Rorschach, whenever he's surprised by something, has like a expression that's on his mask. Like in the first couple of pages, when he opens the comedian's wardrobe and finds that uniform in the cupboard, he's got like a look on his face. The lines make a certain shape.
I'll just check the now.
And that specific pattern of lines, because the lines on his face are indicative of the movement of his face underneath.
Yeah.
Those specific lines and shapes correspond to several different points in the story where he's surprised by something. Like when he finds out that Adrian Veidt planned the whole thing, he's got a similar sort of expression on his face, even though it's not an actual face, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and he does look a bit surprised.
Yeah, because I suppose the idea is that under the mask, it's like a look of surprise, like his eyebrows are raised or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
So it affects the ink in the material. What does it say? It's heat and pressure sensitive. So he moves his facial features, and the mask itself moves as well.
Is a mask like that possible, do you think?
I guess. I think I always read it to be vaguely possible, as if it was 2 layers of sort of semi-translucent plastic with black ink in the middle.
Yep. I wonder if I go into Amazon and buy one of them.
Here's a question for you.
Go on.
Do you think it's possible to catch a bullet?
No.
I would have to say no as well, both because of the heat.
Yeah,
I think the point the book tries to make is that the angular momentum of him spinning round is enough to knock the bullet off its course with enough aggression that it'll be able to catch it. Which I mean, it's a comic book. Come on now, it's a TV show. Come on, but
yeah.
But it's an interesting thought.
It is, and the film, he's wearing gloves, which makes it more believable.
Yeah, if they were like coated with little diamonds, that would be bulletproof. Yeah.
Yeah, because the gloves look quite thick, and it barely gets into the fabric. So you could make the argument, well, he's obviously prepared in case he gets shot.
Yeah.
And his whole suit is like that. But in the fucking book, it's just his hand.
Yeah.
And
and there's like
the
blood
bullet
on his hands as well.
Yeah, exactly. The bullet would go through him. The bullet would go through his hand because it's faster. Yeah. It's faster than the speed of sound.
Yeah.
And it's I caught it.
I caught it. Because I'm just so clever. I can figure out how to catch bullets with my bare hands.
Yeah. Here's a question.
Okay, go on.
Do you think it's possible that an alien could explode in the middle of New York?
It's a TV show, Danny. Come on.
Oh, come on, man. I know it's an interesting thought, though, but it just wouldn't happen, would it? I think you were going to ask this question. I might be wrong, but it's the biggest question of all.
Go on.
What does "Who watches the Watchmen" mean?
Don't know. I think.
Yeah, you do. We've talked about this many times.
It's about, I think, the inherent problem with like a what's the word? Like an autom. I don't want to say automatic because that is not, with the modern meaning of the word, it doesn't make sense. But a governing body that governs itself, by definition, can't be perfect.
Yep.
It's saying, like, the internal affairs bureau of the police or whatever. By definition, it can't really be perfect.
I understand. It's hard to. It's incredibly difficult to hold superheroes to account.
Oh god, yeah, definitely.
And
because They are
Yeah, but-
all powerful.
and they are outside of the law. And it's
Mm.
like, I believe that the quote means, well, if they're watching us, who is it that watches them? Who's there? Who makes sure that they don't step out of line? Who makes sure that they're doing the right thing? I'm gonna read you something, right?
Okay.
That and it's a quote from a very intelligent individual. Right, so it's a bit long, right?
Okay,
So-
I'm prepared.
Okay,
I'm just
so,
taking my headphones off now.
okay. put my earplugs in. My theory has always been that the watchmaker watches the watchman, Dr. Manhattan. At the end, when he teleports away and says, "Nothing ever ends, and I think I'll perhaps create some," in brackets, human life, I believe that he teleports away to create an identical Earth, but without the things that tie him to this Earth, hence the Watchman. In that sense, he is watching over everything, but he has selected his watchmen to be government officials, etc. I believe he has done that just to see what happens if the watchmen are taken out of the equation and his watchmen are put in. This God idea is strengthened further on page 25 of the final issue, where we see Dr. Manhattan walking on water in a Jesus-like style. Furthermore on that page, we see him smile gladly after seeing Laurie and Dan Dryberg. He fully realises that his ties to the world are gone, so I think he wants to see what happens in a world where those ties never existed in the first place. That's my theory anyway. Laughing face, laughing face. Just so you're aware, this isn't from memory. I have a copy in front of me. Laughing face.
That's a quote from me.
Yes, it is.
I'd forgotten I'd said all that. Oh my god.
And do you know what? I saw it the other day, and I was on my iPad because, like, you know how your iPad and your iPhone are connected.
Yeah.
And like, some messages will be like from years ago. That was from the 23rd of July 2016.
Well, that's what I was doing in high school, everyone.
Yeah, because that's when I first read it. You told me to read it, and I'd said, "Oh, I've finished it," and I was like, "What does who watches the Watchmen mean?" And you were like, "Okay, type."
Looks like I have to send him an essay for this one.
Exactly. It's a very interesting theory, though.
I'd completely forgotten that I ever had that opinion, but now
Yep.
that I've repeated it to myself, it does hold water in a strange way. I think that Alan Moore does enjoy a good play on words, and I think that's shown in like things like V for Vendetta, where he speaks almost entirely in poetry and in quotes and stuff like that, where he says all those words with V in them and stuff like that.
Yep.
But because obviously Dr. Manhattan was trained to be a watchmaker when his father came in and threw all the watch components out of the window and said, "No, you're gonna do some science because that's where the world's going."
Yep.
And that's what completely diverted his life and made him into Dr. Manhattan.
Yep.
And of course that is a play on the whole Albert Einstein thing, where he says, "I wish I'd have never been a nuclear physicist because look at all the death that I've created. I should have been a watchmaker."
Yep.
And I mean, I am paraphrasing there. Einstein was much more intelligent than me. I'm sure he could have come up with some better words than those. But now that I vaguely remember that, it does make sense in that watchmaker, in the sense of somebody that manufactures watches, could have this double meaning in this weird Alan Moore side universe, where a watchmaker, and he makes the watch that is people looking over society in this secondary world.
Yep. It fits so well with where Watchmen are currently. Because I don't know if you read DC comics I'm
aware
regularly.
that there was some kind of a resurgence of the Watchmen characters. They came into the DC universe somehow.
Yeah, and like basically they take the idea that at the end of Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan goes to the DC universe, and I don't actually know what happens, but I think he's like an antagonist in the DC universe, and I think it just ruins it for me. I think that's just DC, just ruining things again. It's just like Watchmen is its own separate entity. The book itself is perfect the way it is.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And from that, I am very, very skeptical of what this HBO show is going to bring to the table.
The HBO show is meant to be like a sequel, isn't it?
Which I think is ridiculous.
I am ambivalent towards it. I'd rather they make a sequel of it than they try and make it and it's not good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
I'd
understand.
rather they made an okay sequel than a good but not great remaking of it.
Yeah, because Alan Moore has said many times that he doesn't. It's not something that was ever meant to be adapted.
Yeah,
It was written as a comic book because that's what it's meant to be. It's not meant to be a film.
Hasn't he called it unfilmable a few times?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that if he wanted it to be a film, he could have written it as a film, and it would have been and it would have just been much better. But I'm concerned as to where they're going with Watchmen and HBO. There seems to be this Rorschach cult who presumably have read his journal and now follow him from beyond the grave.
Yeah.
Ozymandias is in it.
Played by Jeremy Irons, isn't he?
I think that's great casting. I think.
Oh god, I mean Jeremy Irons is great and everything. Have you ever seen him in something and thought, well, you know, that wasn't great?
Yeah, exactly. He's always good in the stuff that he does.
Yeah, and even as Scar in The Lion King, he was brilliant.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a continuation of the comic book. It seems to be more in the vein of Snyder's film.
Yes, like a spin-off from the Snyderverse version of Watchmen.
Yeah, because Jeremy Irons looks like Matthew Good.
I suppose he sort of does a bit, yeah.
Yeah, and both of them look nothing like the real Ozymandias. And
just to be clear, by the real Ozymandias you mean the fictional character?
Yes, the original one. The
original. Yeah.
The OG man.
The Ozymandias.
Does that work? No.
I think it works. I'm enjoying it.
Ozymandias.
Yep. I'm having it. So it's too late. I've said it.
Jesus Christ. What's with the police officers with the orange faces?
I have no idea. The only thing I can think is, like in the book, they make reference to the Keene Act.
Yes.
Where this guy, Senator Keene, outlawed masked vigilantes.
Yeah.
I.e., outlawed superheroes in this universe because people didn't trust them. Which again is a continuation of who watches the Watchmen. In a sense of, the government watches the police force, but if the superheroes are above the law and above the government and above God, because Dr. Manhattan has this incredible, almost deity-level ability, if Dr. Manhattan is that far up, then who watches them? So the people don't trust them. So he has to pass this law to get rid of them, so the civil unrest stops and they bring back just normal policemen.
And that's very similar to The Dark Knight Returns, because all of the members of the Justice League have either been killed or disbanded, apart from Superman, who still works for the government.
Yes, of course.
What
happened to Wonder Woman in that book?
I don't know actually. I can't remember.
Because I know obviously Green Arrow plays a big part in the sort of the climax when he shoots that kryptonite arrow at Superman.
Yeah.
And Green Lantern, I don't think he's made reference to. Wonder Woman, I don't think he's made reference to.
I think Green Lantern is. I think he was exiled from Earth.
Oh, okay.
And I think he was sent back to Oa, which is the home of the Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Despite the fact that he's human. So couldn't he have just given up the ring, or what? Maybe he was like, no, I'm not giving up the ring. I'll go to Oa. Don't you worry. I mean, I'll see yous later. I don't like my wife anyway.
I don't like my wife and children anyway. I'm going to go back to this alien planet of which I'm only obliquely aware. This alien planet I visit sort of for a couple of hours every decade. That's where I'm going.
That's it. But there is so many, and isn't there like a war with Russia as well?
Oh, maybe.
There's a conflict with Russia in Batman Returns, or The Dark Knight Returns even. Which is just, I think he really heavily took from Watchmen. in that one.
Perhaps he did, but
Now, is that paying tribute or is that copying, do you think?
I think paying tribute. Because
Yes.
I think the key theme of Watchmen is entirely different to the key theme of The Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight Returns, I think, is about, what's the word now? Civil liberties, and about, like, injustice in a world where there's no such thing as justice. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And what would you say the key theme of Watchmen is?
Power and the control thereof of your own power.
Yep. See with the characters that Moore creates, they all seem to be very anti-establishment and very sort of outcasty and just I mean, in V for Vendetta, you know, the guy is like he's just a revolutionary who blows up the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah,
and Downing Street, and in The Killing Joke, you could argue that it's the Joker who's the protagonist in that book, because it's obviously about Batman, but a lot of time is spent on the Joker.
yeah.
And we learn more about his philosophy in that short comic book than we did since, you know, it was released. You know, because before that it was literally it was in the 40s he was a killer and he was just poisoning people with his laughing gas, and then the Golden Age or the Silver Age even, where it was, you know, the Adam West sort of Joker, where it was just pranks essentially at the end of the day. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you'll never escape my giant death contraption, Batman, or stuff like, you know, that sort of slapsticky stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And then suddenly Moore comes in with this incredibly dark and twisted version of a character.
Yeah.
You know, he turns a superhero into a paraplegic without even knowing. It's not even about her. So she's just there. He just sees it, just goes, "Hi, yeah," and just cripples her. And DC liked it so much that they made it canon as well.
So would you argue then, if that was the sort of the first introduction of a very, very dark Joker, would you argue that's the birthplace of, say, performances like Heath Ledger's, and we can hopefully hope Joaquin Phoenix's?
Yes, I don't think. See, if Moore or someone very like Moore hadn't made The Killing Joke or a story similar to that, I don't think we would have had the Joker that we have today. Because the Joker is ideologically driven. Like he's a more active version of the comedian. Like the comedian is sort of because the comedian is just sort of like he's nihilistic and is so cynical.
But he lives that passively.
Yep, and just will do whatever he wants. But the Joker is incredibly focused on either proving to everyone that life is meaningless, or showing hypocrisy and proving that no one is really that's where Christopher Nolan took Heath Ledger's Joker. He wanted to what do you call it? The Joker in the Dark Knight wanted to take down Harvey Dent, who's a sort of this symbol of
hope and
hope
all
and
good in the world.
Yep, and just prove that anyone can be destroyed and anyone can be as bad as me if you just push hard enough, which means that justice and goodness are irrelevant.
And you could argue that's what the Joker tried to do in The Killing Joke, in that he was trying to bring down Commissioner Gordon.
Exactly, that's exactly what he was trying to do. But it didn't work, and then there's the question of whether Batman killed him at the end of it.
I don't think he did.
In the canon, he obviously didn't. But assuming that was a story that Moore said this is separate and I want to just write it because I like these characters and I wanted to see how it would look in a sort of end game strain scenario,
Sure.
it makes sense if you think about it. I suppose Batman would have been like, well, there is no point anymore in trying to have this argument with you. You're never going to change, ever.
Mm.
And either I do this, or I let you live and condemn millions of other people, or maybe not millions, thousands of other people to death because we're still continuing this ideological argument.
I don't agree with you. I think that the not the conflict, the joking and the laughing that they have at the end of The Killing Joke is, I think, very, very similar to that conversation that Heath Ledger's Joker and Christian Bale's Batman have, where essentially he was saying, we're basically just the same.
Yeah.
We're going to keep doing this forever because we're the exact carbon copy, sort of opposites of each other.
Yep.
I think that's the realization that Batman had at the end of The Killing Joke, and that's why he was laughing along with the Joker, of, we are the same. There's no point continuing this because we're the same. I don't think it was we're going to be doing this forever, so I might as well just kill you now and get it over with. I think it was not necessarily the start of an alliance, but the start of a sort of a more understanding, sort of almost a friendship between the two of them, a begrudging respect.
Or merit, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I think that's how nowadays, when I read modern day Joker and Batman comics, it's like there's a begrudging respect between Batman and the Joker.
Yes.
I know you're a lunatic and you kill people, and this is you're so deeply ill and all this, but there's a respect between them. The Joker respects the Batman's beliefs, and Batman respects the Joker's beliefs. To a point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's that amazing quote that Heath Ledger gives? And it's like,
This is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
And I think that's the whole point. And
Yeah.
it's just, do you think that I know that we've branched off into The Killing Joke and Batman, but it's sort of in the same vein. Do you think that the recent film that's coming out with Joaquin Phoenix is going to be a continuation of that sort of ideological opposites, with, instead of Bruce Wayne, Thomas Wayne? Or do you think this is a separate, just another character study of a guy who's mentally ill?
I think it's entirely separate to any kind of Batman-based conflict.
Yeah.
I think, and I certainly hope, it's going to be almost a Joker biopic. Do you know what I mean?
I hope that it's a standalone thing. I hope that they don't sequel it.
I completely agree. I think this is, they've said it quite a few times, these interesting things about, most of us have barely even read the comics. We just wanted to see what this character is. We wanted to just push it to its limits, and push Joaquin Phoenix to his limits, and make this incredible performance. Did you hear he got an 8-minute standing ovation at a film festival recently?
I heard that. I take it with a pinch of salt, but if it's true, I can only...
If it's true, then I will stand up for 9 minutes in the cinema and applaud it.
Yeah, I'll stand up for the length of this podcast in the cinema.
1 hour 17 minutes so far.
Yes. What was the time for? I know that the last podcast was a bit shorter.
The last one was after I cut it down. It was 1 hour 10, I think. About.
Yeah. What was the first one?
Oh, 1 hour 20, 1 hour 30.
Yeah.
I'll have a look now.
I'm not complaining. I've got nowhere to be but to talk about Watchmen. It's like I've got a wee appointment. We better wrap this up.
So I've got to go to the dentist. Can we just wrap this up really quickly?
Do you think that Alan Moore is an anarchist?
I'm not sure.
Because his politics are very, if judging by his work, which so many people do, like if you want to find out the way someone behaves or the way someone thinks, if they're an artist, then you look at their work. But I just get the feeling that he's an anarchist with the stuff that he comes out with.
That's true. I mean, V for Vendetta. That's literally anarchy. He's against a leader, an arc. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And Watchmen, it's not necessarily anarchistic. It's more about changing the world order, changing the status quo.
Yep.
I mean, he might be an anarchist. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Have you ever heard that thing about how Alan Moore supposedly worships a statue of a snake god in his garden?
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, each to their own. I
Yeah,
just,
whatever
it was
you
quite
want,
surprising.
you know, whatever floats your boat, but like, it just... And he's a magician as well, isn't he?
Yes, that was another thing I found quite interesting. He views, like, say, Watchmen as a spell. He views magic as being able to generate an idea and a thought in your head,
Yep.
just with his words. So that's what. So he thinks Watchmen is one very, very long spell where he generates a specific idea or set of ideas in your mind by casting the spell by you reading it.
There is another guy who Alan Moore is very friendly with. He's a Scottish writer who believes that he can end the world or something like that.
Go on.
I'm paraphrasing. I don't know the guy's name. I think it's Ian something.
Okay, I don't know this man.
Yeah, but he's he does comic books and stuff like that, and apparently this is apparently, so don't take my word for this at all. I could just be making this up. No, apparently him and his comic books are the sort of texts to begin the apocalypse or something like that.
Oh wow, well that's intense.
Yeah, it really is.
Let's try not to read those ones.
Yeah.
If they're going to bring about the apocalypse, let's try to avoid them.
Yeah, we don't want to be doing that.
Goodness me, I think I've exhausted my notes now, I've got to tell you.
Oh, I exhausted my notes about 20 minutes ago.
You know what the real question is? What are we
What?
talking about next time?
Oh, that is a good question.
I've got the list in front of me.
I think that we should talk about a TV show that I absolutely adore,
Okay.
and it is called Death Note.
Death Note. Okay. I have not seen any of Death Note. How much Death Note is there?
Well, there's I believe, I'm gonna just check. It's not seasons. It's like one long season of half-an-hour episodes.
Okay. 37
Okay.
episodes.
Yes.
12 volumes. What?
But no, there's a comic book, and there's
Oh, okay.
and then
Yeah.
and then there's the anime show, and then Netflix made a film version of it, and it was fucking shocking. Tell you that.
Right.
It's like, oh, Jesus. It should be a criminal offence to make a film like that. When I rise to power, no. No, but I think we should do Death Note next. I love Death Note.
Okay, we'll do Death Note next.
You might need a bit of time.
Is it going to make me incredibly sad? Am I going to be sad?
I don't know if you'll be sad. I
Is it
don't
gonna
know.
make
I don't.
me, I don't know,
I think-
hopeless?
I think it's one of those TV shows. It's very, very serious, but sometimes you'll laugh because it's like anime. Anime's like quite over the top and quite goofy. But because the subject is so serious, you'll either be in awe or you'll laugh, essentially.
I'll either be in awe or I'll laugh.
Yeah.
It's good those things aren't... It's handy that those things aren't, opposites or anything. Oh my
Yep.
god, there's 37 episodes. They're 20 minutes long, but there's 37 episodes.
Yeah. It doesn't. I think that the Japanese version is better. They've made about 5 films and they were all shocking. But
A glowing review.
yeah, but don't do the English dub. The Japanese version's better with the subtitles.
Okay. I'll take a look at that then.
Good.
I have no idea when we're going to record next, because that's going to take me about 1,000 years to get through. But
it's not that bad, man. It's not that bad.
no, I'm being dramatic.
Oh, I didn't get that.
No, I'm being hilarious, Danny. You wouldn't understand.
You were. God, that was a mammoth of a topic. That one.
It was. We've been recording for an hour and 26 minutes.
My brain is like,
Fried.
yeah, like if you mash mashed potatoes,
Yeah.
That's my after you mash them again. That's what my brain is at the moment.
That's pretty close to how my brain is right now, I've got to say.
Should start a cooking podcast about how to cook things badly for
Right.
people that you dislike. You're gonna want to turn the heat up to 180 and leave that on for 2 days, and then you'll be golden.
You're going to want to take these mashed potatoes and dump in a pound of salt.
See, when the steak looks like a small bit of bark from a tree, you'll know you've done it right.
When you've literally made your steak into charcoal, then it's done.
When you can put it in your fireplace, that's you. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Right. Well, where can people find you?
I don't want to be found.
Okay, that's fairly reasonable.
There's a couple of cases up here in Scotland against me for
what?
white collar fraud.
For what? White collar fraud?
Yep. I said some things that I shouldn't have, Lewis. I'm getting done for slander against Christopher Tolkien.
Oh my god.
We said that last. See what I did there? I did a comedy connection right there.
Yeah, I could just about tell.
Yeah, because I'm not. I'm normally a one-trick pony when it comes to jokes. I won't do the same joke twice unless it builds. You know me, Lewis. I never repeat material relentlessly until people are just sick of it.
Yeah, you've never done that. Never done that to me. Never done that to any of our friends. No.
Nope.
No. You tell one joke and then never tell that joke again.
Exactly. I don't milk it.
Yeah, it's a good job it never becomes tiresome or...
Yeah.
Well, Danny doesn't want to be found, but you can find me at Lewis Brindley4 on Twitter, at Lewis_Brindley on Instagram. You can find the podcast at shoutingintothevoid.podomatic.com. Please share it. Share it with the world, with your mum, with your dad, with your dog, with your friends, with your family.
If you want to find me, right, watch the other 2 episodes. I've got my contact details there. See what I did there, Lewis? I've just got us a bit of advertising there.
Oh, you have? That's incredible.
I'm
very impressed.
They're going to be so interested about my Instagram and Twitter and Facebook that they're going to watch the other 2 episodes. Or
they're going to be inundated, yeah.
Exactly.
Those 2 we're going to crash the Podomatic website. We're going to melt those servers.
Do you know what we need? Just before we go, we need a sort of a shocking device on both of us, so that if we go off topic for more than 10 seconds, then we each get 20,000 volts each in the neck.
Well, that seems like a terrible idea.
Be like, okay, back to Ozymandias. Okay.
Okay, well, that's the end of that, I think.
You've got some editing to do.
I have a lot of editing to do.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yes, thank you.